Society calls it a sin. Your relatives call it betrayal. But in the world of high-level psychology, cutting off a toxic family member isn't an act of aggression. It is the ultimate act of strategic self-preservation. Why do the most intelligent, high-value men often reach a breaking point where they choose total silence over family loyalty? It's not because they are cold-hearted. It's because their brain has identified a systemic threat to their legacy that no amount of blood can justify. If you have walked away or are currently standing at the door, you aren't broken. You are operating on a frequency of crystallized logic that 90% of the world is too afraid to acknowledge. Today, we are deconstructing the brutal psychology behind the silent divorce and why, for a mastermind, walking away is sometimes the only way to win. Reason 1. Cognitive dissonance and the blood trap. The most difficult part of cutting off family isn't the distance, it's the cognitive dissonance. Society trains us to believe that blood is thicker than water, forcing you to love the very people who destabilize your mind. The deep explanation. Highly intelligent men reach a stage where they can no longer reconcile the family image with the actual reality. Your brain realizes that the people who share your DNA are the same ones who are sabotaging your peace. When the cost of the relationship exceeds the value of your mental health, a high IQ mind chooses surgical amputation over slow poisoning. The example: imagine you are a successful man who has built a legacy, yet every time you sit at a family table, you are treated like a failure or a source of money. You realize they aren't in love with you. They are in love with the utility you provide. Walking away is the only way to stop the leaking of your personal power. Reason 2. The end of generational narcissism. The second reason is the refusal to inherit generational trauma. Many men over 50 realize they have spent decades fixing problems they didn't create. Problems passed down by narcissistic parents or siblings. The deep explanation. After 5 decades of observation, you've decoded the pattern. You see that your family dynamic is a cycle of manipulation and guilt. A mastermind understands that you cannot build a clean future on a foundation of dirty history. Cutting them off is how you protect your children and your legacy from the same infection. The example: you notice a sibling using the same manipulative tactics on your children that your parents used on you. A younger man might argue, a mature genius simply removes the access. You decide that the lineage of toxicity ends with you. You become the firewall for your own legacy. Reason 3. The efficiency of silence. Strategic detachment. The third reason is resource preservation. At age 60, you realize that your emotional energy is a finite currency. You no longer have the budget to finance other people's chaos. The deep explanation. In high-level psychology, this is known as strategic detachment. You've spent years trying to fix family members who refuse to change. Your brain finally performs a cost-benefit analysis and concludes that silence is more profitable than conflict. You aren't mad anymore. You are simply finished. The example: a toxic family member calls you with the same self-made crisis for the 100th time. Instead of giving advice or getting angry, you realize that your silence is your only remaining weapon. You don't block them out of hate. You block them out of a desperate need for efficiency. Your time is now too valuable for their drama. Reason 4. Protecting the inner sanctum. Legacy defense. The fourth reason is legacy defense. By age 55, you aren't just a man. You are the CEO of your own family lineage. You realize that a toxic relative is like a virus in your operating system. If you don't quarantine it, it will infect your children and your grandchildren. The deep explanation. Highly intelligent men prioritize the future over the past. You understand that family loyalty is a two-way street. If a relative brings chaos, addiction, or manipulation into your home, they are a threat to the stability you've spent decades building. You aren't cutting them off out of spite. You are doing it to protect the inner sanctum of your direct heirs. The example: imagine you've built a peaceful home life. A toxic sibling arrives, bringing drama and disrespect. An average man tolerates it for the sake of the parents. A mastermind realizes that his children are watching. By walking away, you teach your children a lethal lesson. Respect is the price of admission to my life. Reason 5. The myth of mandatory forgiveness. The fifth reason is the rejection of performative forgiveness. Society pressures you to forgive and forget so that they can feel comfortable. But a high IQ mind understands that forgiveness without change is just an invitation for more abuse. The deep explanation. In the world of elite psychology, we distinguish between letting go and reconnecting. You can forgive someone in your heart to find peace, but still choose to never speak to them again to maintain safety. You've realized that your peace of mind is a non-negotiable asset. The example, a parent or relative who has spent 30 years gaslighting you finally says, "I'm sorry," but their behavior remains the same. A mastermind sees the apology as a tactical move to regain control. You accept the apology, but you keep the door locked. You've traded fake harmony for real sanity. Reason 6, the alignment of values, intellectual divorce. The sixth reason is value disconnect. As you've evolved, you've realized that having the same last name doesn't mean you share the same soul. Sometimes, the gap between your intelligence and their stagnation becomes too wide to bridge. The deep explanation. This is an intellectual divorce. Your brain is wired for growth, strategy, and excellence. If your family environment is wired for victimhood, complaints, and low-level thinking, the friction becomes exhausting. You don't hate them, you've simply outgrown the container they want to keep you in. The example. You want to talk about legacy, investments, or philosophy. They want to talk about 20-year-old grudges and neighborhood gossip. You realize that every hour spent with them is an hour spent down-leveling your own mind. You choose to walk away so you can keep climbing. Reason 7, the preservation of cognitive energy. The seventh reason is biological efficiency. By age 60, your brain has a limited daily budget of emotional energy. Every hour spent arguing with a toxic relative is an hour stolen from your health, your sleep, and your focus. The deep explanation. Highly intelligent men perform a mental audit. They realize that toxic family is a high-maintenance, low-yield investment. Your brain chooses to liquidate the relationship to save the asset, which is your own life force. You aren't being cold, you are being economical. The example. Instead of spending your Sunday dreading a phone call from a manipulative parent, you spend it in total silence, reading or planning your next move. You feel a physical weight lift off your shoulders. That lightness is your brain finally exiting survival mode. Reason 8, the power of chosen family. The eighth reason is the realization that loyalty is earned, not inherited. A mastermind understands that family is a title given to those who protect you, not just those who share your blood. The deep explanation. You've shifted from biological loyalty to value-based loyalty. You begin to build a circle of friends, mentors, and partners who actually respect your boundaries and fuel your growth. This chosen family is far more stable because it's built on mutual excellence, not accidental DNA. The example. You find more brotherhood in a 30-minute conversation with a peer who shares your values than in a 30-year relationship with a cousin who only shares your last name. You realize that you can re-engineer your village at any age. Reason 9. The void is a fortress, not a hole. The ninth reason is embracing the silence. Average people fear the void left by family. A mastermind realizes that the void is actually a fortress of peace. The deep explanation. When you remove the noise of family drama, you finally hear your own voice. For the first time in decades, your nervous system is no longer on high alert. This silence allows your crystallized intelligence to reach its peak. You aren't alone, you are finally available to yourself. The example. You sit in your home and realize there is no impending crisis coming from a relative. No drama, no guilt trips, just absolute, unshakable clarity. In that moment, you realize that walking away was the smartest move you've ever made. Behavior 10, final strategic conclusion. Cutting off family isn't about hate, it's about standardization. You have set a standard for how you will be treated in the final third of your life. The conclusion. If you have made this choice, stop looking back with regret. You haven't lost a family, you've gained a kingdom of peace. You are no longer a victim of your history. You are the architect of your solitude. Those who cannot respect your boundaries do not deserve to witness your legacy. The door is closed. The war is over. You have won.